Hey, good morning, everyone. I just want to do sort of just a discussion, but I'm going to center it around a verse in Ecclesiasticus, a book in the Apocrypha, Ecclesiasticus 40, 25, 28. So I was just reading again some stuff on Reddit, people asking for advice and stuff about jobs, and one person's being lowballed because they haven't been working for a year, and it's a contract position on top of that. And so we see this happening where everybody's kind of um, determined to be sort of expendable. It's like full time employees, people who've been in companies for many many years. Just doesn't happen anymore. It's not as common from the top down. And so contract roles, part time, commission based, all these kind of things are just happening. And so to me, I was reading that and I'm like, it's really a form of begging. It's like the system that we have right now, we're essentially kind of begging for a job when we interview. It's a form of begging, and it can get to that if it's not pretty quickly. And then even when people are asking for raises and promotions and all that, you're kind of begging, this quote unquote beast system. And so wanted to use this verse from Ecclesiasticus to contrast that. And it's Ecclesiasticus 40:25 reads, "Gold and silver make the foot stand as sure, but counsel is esteemed above both." So this is saying even like wealth from gold and silver, um, counsel and wisdom, supersede that, which is a good statement. "Riches and strength lift up the heart, but the fear of the Lord is above them both. There is no want in the fear of the Lord, and it needeth not to seek help." So this is a very powerful statement, bold statement, from the writer of this. And to me, it is true that if you fear God, first of all, that means that you know that God exists, and so you would understand that everything that's happening to you, whether poverty or riches, is from God, and so that in and of itself is a powerful thing. Much less fearing Him, just knowing that God exists. And to me, in these days, flat Earth and all the evil and all that other stuff is pointing to that heavily. And so it goes on to say, "The fear of the Lord is a fruitful garden, and covereth him above all glory. My son, lead not a beggar's life, for better it is to die than to beg." That's verse 28. "The life of him that dependeth on another man's table is not to be counted for a life, for he polluteth himself with another man's meat. But a wise man well nurtured will be aware thereof. Will beware thereof. Begging is sweet in the mouth of the shameless, but in his belly there shall burn a fire." And to me, this is where the Bible is just amazing at describing things. It's like, it's, the words sound sweet. We say like a person sucking up, just sugarcoating everything, kissing up. And that's in the mouth of the shameless, but in his belly there shall burn a fire. It makes sense. It's because you're always on edge, and I've had that feeling, we all have had that feeling during interviews or just working in corporate world where you're uncomfortable. And you feel it in your stomach. You can actually probably tangibly measure that your immune system is going down. And for the last like couple months that I've been working from home, not really interacting with people much on a work level face to face, and it's been very stress free. I've just noticed that I feel healthier. Like I just don't feel stressed very often, if at all. And I'm not eating perfect, but I'm definitely eating a lot better being at home and stuff. And it's just like that burning of fire is, to me, it's like a weakened immune system. It's like when you're constantly dependent on somebody else, you are in a weak position. And that's what the Bible, to me, in the one of the things that it's getting at in these verses is that it'll affect your physiology. It's like you can say all these different things and all that, but your body is its own sort of lie detector test, and that's what a lie detector test is based on, when you're having to say things that are not true or in the least not sincere. And so to me, the powerful point in this verse is, "My son, lead not a beggar's life, for it is better to die than to beg." And to me, this is very true. I think now more that my eyes are opened about the future, especially here in America, and how bleak it is, I often, when I pass homeless people, and there are a lot of them in downtown Houston, I wonder why they're here, And it's like, to me, there's an element of purity in that, and virtue, that they're just sort of toughing it out. But to me, I just don't understand, what they're waiting for. It's like, what is the probability of them going from their life to something livable? And I would say my life right now is livable, but I don't enjoy it. Like, I'm still begging to some extent, from corporations or from the government if you're on unemployment, or whatever. You're begging somebody. And so that's not really an enviable position to aspire to. And then, to me, the further up you get, the more you're just at the, at the whim, at the mercy of, like, very overtly evil people. It's like there's sort of a gap between us and those people, the quote unquote elite. And I'm going to do a video on opposites, and that's funny that they're named the elite. But we have sort of a buffer, and we don't kind of get exposed to them. But all the people in, like, Hollywood and, like, music industry and stuff, like, they see that, and they have to be a part of it probably. So that's not really where you want to aspire to either. So it's like there's no upward mobility, and you wouldn't want to be upward, in my opinion, in the world that we live in now. So I don't understand why homeless people don't just take their own life, and that may not sound like a very loving thing to say, but to me, in this place, and I'm sure in many other places in the Bible, it would support the fact that it is better to die, than to live just like a dog, basically, and there's a lot of animals that are treated a lot better in their home than humans, and this just shows the condition that we are as a people, that animals have more morals and integrity than us, and they look out for their own better than we do, way better, and in some cases. So, this is something that I think about more and more now, because it's becoming more and more obvious the amount that I have to sort of beg and pretend, I think, is a better way to describe it for me, is like pretend like I care. A lot of people, even the non-religious, are starting to realize that they just don't care. They don't care about their company. The company doesn't care about itself. It's like, how can you care for somebody that doesn't even care for themselves? It's like if you have someone in your family, who's like in and out of drugs, or like, has like health issues, or that are self-induced, you can't love that person more than they love themselves and want to take care of themselves. And to me, the corporations are the same. It's like, no one wants to go to work for a company that is designed and is actively kind of imploding itself. It's like, they don't want to, like, be innovative and, work together and keep the company alive and stuff. It's just purely, at this point, about survival, and it's obvious. And so people just want to keep their job and redirect blame. That's the sort of vibe in corporate America. So, it's just not, it's not sincere for me to, like, be a part of anything like that, and have it not feel like I'm just there, like, as a beggar, basically, just to collect my paycheck and move on. And so it is better to die. It's becoming obvious. It's been obvious for me for the last maybe a couple months, but I think this is, again, not good advice, but this verse also reaffirms that God exists, and it's better to fear God and to draw closer to him than even have gold and silver and all that. And so riches and strength lift up the heart, but the fear of the Lord is above them both. And so even if you're rich, strong, healthy and all that kind of stuff, fearing God is above that. And to me, the only way, and I think I've done a video on this in the past, the only way to fear God is to not fear anything else. And I'm not saying anybody can do this perfectly. To me, even Jesus Christ showed some amount of fear about what he was about to face in the physical, the death on the cross, and probably other experiences. But overall, fearing God to me is knowing that the fear of him is an exclusive thing. And then once you don't fear anything else, it's actually very freeing. It is, like, I'm not like jumping for joy every day, but there's a lot of things that just don't affect me anymore. I think I don't really fear losing my job, obviously, because I kind of left voluntarily, but it's happened to me already, with these performance improvement plans, which I've done videos on. So that's not fearful. Running out of money doesn't, cause fear in me anymore, because I've already sort of planned it out that, I'll just live off of whatever I have for the next year or two. The fear of dying in a gruesome way is makes me, gives me some fear in those moments that I think like that, like dying, getting in a car crash where I don't die immediately or have to deal with like paralysis and stuff. That freaks me out. Fearing, getting raped by another man, or an extremely ugly woman, like that. That's also fearful for me. And with the way a lot of these women are and how you know big and odd looking a lot of them are, like I don't know if I would even be able to defend myself with a woman. So that honestly is not something I think about a lot. But in these times, people just don't have any, inhibition. We don't know what will happen, when things get crazy. So that's a genuine fear. And I think it's rational. It's, again, not something I think about, every minute or something. But it's a real thing for me to think about when I start to realize that, once there's more people desperate than the police or the law enforcement and all the security and stuff can handle, military, things will start to get chaotic. And it's not even that it has to overpower them. It just has to become a growing number that are just running out of resources. And so once that happens, things will start to get, I don't know, there's not enough prisons to handle that kind of a situation. And so it's kind of like basically like what's happening in Venezuela. It's like, how can law enforcement keep up? And it's like the lines become very blurred when pretty much everybody's doing it. If everybody's stealing from stores and all that, like, how do you prosecute people like that? And then once you do, let's say you do prosecute them, where do you house them and feed them? It's like they would probably want to be in jail because maybe they'll be fed, in situations. So that's when sort of it tips over, and you can't really come back from that quickly, if at all, when a society does that, like Venezuela, to kind of to have the quorum sort of rebuilt or go back to some kind of semblance of like, normalcy. I don't think it would be very easy, and to me it would take lifetimes because of the amount of sort of systemic issues that are there in a company or in a country which is acting like a company that corrupt and has squandered that much money and their resources. And so there's always like implications and ramifications for countries being irresponsible from the top down. And so that to me is actually very comforting in a way too, is like knowing that when things get crazy, I don't really kind of ask God for more money anymore. It's like I genuinely do put my as much as I can my faith in him, in the sense that if I were to like run out of money, let's say the markets would go in the opposite direction of the things that I've invested in, and I would actually have less and less time here, I would actually rejoice. I would need to rejoice to know that that is a way that God is actually shortening my life here on earth, and it's good for me because this thing, and I'm just watching Dollar Vigilante, they're talking about, he's predicting in the next year or two, like a major crash. And it's like, it's getting closer. It's not getting further away. And, people in the mainstream corporate media are like, there's no chance of a recession. I don't see one happening. It's like, why would they even talk about that? If there was no chance of a recession, or very slim, no one would talk about it. Stores would be opening, people would be getting hired, people would be happy, or at least, somewhat comfortable, with their future and having a future. But that's not the case, and it's not just me. It's becoming very obvious that people are starting to worry about continuity, in terms of their income and the amount of it as well. And so, it's not far away. And so to me, I would view these kind of things like, so my only point is that I'm learning to like not have fear of that as well, which could be one of the things that I would be susceptible to be fearful of, is like, just running out of money and sooner than maybe what I have kind of planned out in my mind, but, viewing that as like, a blessing. And so I'm starting to get better at, just not being afraid of things. And obviously this is like, because I'm kind of at the end of the rope here, but, it's, that might not be the best term to use, but I'm kind of at the end of this thing. I know my life will not live. I will not be physically alive on this earth for much longer. for longer than 3 years. That would be, anything is possible, obviously. Whatever God wants and has planned for me and everyone. But that just mathematically, it seems very, very unlikely, because I've been in corporate America 10 years and I get the vibe, and the role that I had recently full time was good, except I just wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting there bored, and I just don't get why I would be forced to sit there for 8 hours and kill time. I was watching like flat earth debate and golf and stuff, and like there's only so much time you can kill in an office environment, and then also pretend to be like you're working, which I don't like having to be insincere. I just would rather I just don't feel comfortable. I can do it for a while, and even I struggle with in relationships, because I feel like a lot of them are just phony, and they're just people using each other for various things, and not necessarily in a overtly malicious way. I'm not saying that it's like demonic, but if I ever feel like I'm being insincere, it will. There's a time limit for that, and I just don't feel like it's sincere for me to sit in an office and just kill time and also pretend like I'm working and helping a company that, like I said, doesn't even really. Some of them, not this one that I work at now, but like some of them don't even want to help themselves, and so that's a problem. And so I throw this out there just for people to, because I know that I'm not the only one going through this, and I think a lot of people have been going through this for a while, even before the '08 crash. We're just, money is not coming in, and that's just the sad reality for a lot of people. And it's going to be really tough for people with these Ford and GM layoffs and Deutsche Bank and stuff, people who have like used to like 6-figure incomes and stuff, to like deal with unemployment and then potentially nothing for a while, or for extended periods of time. But that's going to be the hardest thing, because like those roles at the top, like as the pyramid gets higher and higher, there's less of those roles, VP of this, director of this, and all that, CEOs, CFOs. So it's harder for them. I'm not trying to give them pity or anything, but it's just the natural way things are. And so we're finding, even just from Reddit, you can see that it's hard to even find like hourly roles and stuff for people with an education. So it's definitely hard for people at the sort of base of this pyramid, like us. But it's also going to be very challenging as they sort of shed a lot of these executive roles, for those people to make ends meet. And then they've already been used to kind of a more expensive lifestyle, a bigger house and more cars and potentially larger families and stuff. So, I don't think it's going to take that long to unravel. So the way I see this, at least we can use this verse when things start getting like Venezuela-like or potentially worse. There's no point in fighting it. It's like, just die. It's like that's again, sounds very morbid, but we're not very far from that. And there are people going through it now, as I'm recording this video. And it's just, to me, to go into politic and to go and beg, to just scrounge to keep things, together for a little while. There's no like 50-year plan in America. Like, there's no way that America will exist with this kind of an economy, with this little money movement and this little money getting to our hands. And so in that Dollar Vigilante interview, the most recent one, they were asking, like, can the Fed just print more money and, just kick the can down the road? And the way I would answer that is that they could, but it's only if they print more money and it gets to like our hands, like the middle class, quote unquote middle class or lower class, or even the lower upper class, which like these VPs and stuff, as they might get laid off and stuff, or have been, they're going to be in trouble too. And so if the money does not reach our hands, they can print as much money as they want and put it in the stock market and make real estate prices, go up because, it's owned by the Chinese or by central banks or whatever. But if it doesn't get into our hands, we have no ability to go and sustain ourselves. And so, that's just, there's no mechanism for that, except unless it's through a corporation. And so, again, that's just the way the system is. And I've done a video on that recently, that the money printing and all that, the expanse of the quote unquote credit supply, is largely only available to us in a situation when we're buying, things like cars, houses, going to school, tuition, and stuff like that. It's not like you can't take a loan for food, or to like pay your rent and stuff. It's like I don't know how many apartment buildings accept credit cards for rent payment. Mine doesn't, and I don't think a lot of them do. And it's like you can only get behind for a couple months anyway. Let's just say yours does. You can put your rent on your credit card. I mean, that's a pretty heavy amount to start burdening your credit card, which is probably, if you're at that stage, already leveraged up. And so, this credit supply only affects those type of things, like car, house, tuition, and stuff like that. So, you can get these emergency loans, but they're going to have like ridiculous interest rates, like a credit card would when you're late on payments. It's going to be like that. That's the kind of rate that you're going to get. And so that's not really an option to money print our way out of this next collapse. And let's say they do that, and I suspect they might. The dollar will be virtually it'll be worthless, and that's what the guy made the point, is that they can do that, and even if it doesn't get to us, or even if it does, at that point, with that much money out there, things will be, and the markets would obviously crash if it got to a panic situation like that. The money will be released from the stock market and other places, and there will be tons of USD in circulation. And we see globally, people are starting to get away from using the US dollar, so that those funds would have to make their way back here. There would just be like, Big Macs would cost like $50, $60 and stuff, like just one hamburger. Or more maybe. And so in my opinion, I think we're definitely on the precipice of that. It's a lot easier to make those predictions now, especially in lieu with the market volatility in the last few days. But I have a feeling, just my gut is that in 2019, it might still be a little bit of back and forth, if not at the end of the year. But at some point near the end of next year, or in 2020, it's going to be obvious. Like, it's going to be like Venezuela. We'll start to see, people, just more and more people out on the streets, begging and stuff. And so this verse reminds us, or in my opinion, it should be obvious for those that believe in God, that, my son, lead not a beggar's life, for it is better to die. For better it is to die than to beg. And so that applies to me even without being out on the streets begging. Don't beg these corporations. We're begging people or entities that are completely satanic. It's not good. It's literally like begging a prostitute for sex. It's not right. And God does not want this. And like I've said other times, God will only give you what you'll settle for. So if you settle for like going into a garbage can and looking for food, then you go for it. If God's like, if you really don't believe in me that much and you're afraid of dying that bad by that amount, that you will go into a garbage can and look for food, or steal from somebody, or beg somebody for food, and not just die and return, in my presence, then, the faithless will remain faithless, and that's the sad reality, in my opinion, of a lot of people. But, God's children should not be like that. Okay, hope everyone's doing well. Take care. Bye.